Sort of only half his trick too, because the labour component in terms of producing raw jelly, you can see up in this tray here, there's that picture up in the top left. The tray on the left has got the raw jelly, the one in his right hand has got all the grubs being caught in the sieve. His other idea was then to get a bit of frame and put in a comb and actually get that laid up with eggs and grubs, or laid up with and let them hatch out into grubs. And then actually reverse things and put the cells in there and then put that frame in on top and then put it through the extractor again. And what it does is just throw out the grub out of the comb into the cell cups, and it actually grafts all the cells at the same time as well, or a second stage, a second spin. So taking out that second labour component out of the whole thing as well. So he thinks he's on to a bit of a winner here, and he was. So 2 years ago, 2013, he showed us this prototype. He was just about to roll out a pilot project of about 30 or 40 to his raw jelly producers. China produces about 90% of the world's raw jelly. So they're a big producer. There's another couple of pictures. So that's a common frame with raw jelly producing cells within it, gets put into a hive. This is another idea that a different co-op had, a different business had. Instead of pulling out a frame outside, you've just got it mounted within a drawer, and you just pull the drawer out, you don't even have to open up the hive. And then you can just take out individual bars out of there, which has got all the cells in them as well. They had two, commonly for raw jelly production, they have 2 queens per hive. At the university over there, they've actually been trialling and working out a way to actually get more queens per hive, so they can have, because they need to produce a lot of eggs and a lot of young larvae to be able to graft into those cell cups all the time. So they need some really big egg factories. So they've come up with this idea of why just have 2 queens in the one hive and separate it. Why can't we just have multiple queens? So each one of these here is a queen. There's 6 queens in this hive, and there's no separation between them, and they're coexisting quite happily. The way they've done it is just amazingly simple. What they've done is they've just gone and snipped off the mandibles off the queens, and so that the queens can't, when the queens fight, they grab each other and then try and sting each other. They snip off the mandibles, they can't grab each other, so then they can't sting. As soon as one tries to sting the other one, it just moves away. So they've just snipped off the mandibles off that queen, and then they chuck them all in the same hive, and they happily coexist. And you've got a massive egg factory. So they've had up to 13 queens in the one hive, all coexisting and all laying and all producing and going quite well. So very much an amazingly simple idea that just made you think, why hasn't anyone else thought of this before?
The queens are still taking food and so on?
Queens still taking food, yeah.
What function does the queen lose because apart from being able to kill another queen? Does it lose any other functions because of the loss of the mandibles?
No. But there is some pheromone glands there around the mouth area as well, but no, they said it doesn't seem to affect them in any way. It takes them a few days to get used to the other queens there, but then they're just happily all coexisting and going along as normal. Their perception of Australia is exactly what was intimated before. This is it's a lovely day in Beijing on the top left, and this is out in Western Victoria. That's our load of bees out in the big desert wilderness park. So that's why they like Australia. That's why the perception of Australia has been a great place to actually produce raw jelly, produce honey, and produce any sort of food. That's why it's so good, and that's why we're sort of primary production within Australia. That's why Chinese are coming over here now and buying up milk processing companies and buying up farms and all this sort of thing, because of that perception. Because some of them don't ever see blue sky like this. Free trade agreement is going to be an interesting thing. We saw a few instances of Australian honey over there. So there is Australian honey going into China already and doing quite well. As I said, it wasn't the top price honey, it wasn't the bottom price, it was sort of middle of the road. But that all depends on the market.
Was it real Australian honey?
Was it real Australian honey? I think so. I've since found out, since I came back, that who the guy is that does that one. This one over here, I think I know who that one is, I'm just not sure. Interesting in terms of, though, we had two honeys here. We had a Mallee honey, which is traditionally darker, and we've got a yellow box here, but they look exactly the same in terms of colour. We actually bought a bottle of the yellow box and brought it all the way back from, produced in Australia, gone all the way to China, and then we brought it and brought it back. And we had a tasting, got some other beekeepers' impressions of it, and they said it sort of tasted like yellow box, but it had just been heated too much, and so it had sort of a burnt flavour to it. So yeah, marketing to make it worth much more. What we learnt, beekeeping is still the same over there, pretty much the same as it is here. A lot of the things that are done over here in terms of frames, designs, frame usage is all very similar, slight tweaks on it. Chinese beekeeping and professionalism is changing and getting better and better. No, I haven't got it there. In Australia here, it's sort of, we're different in terms of the Australian beekeeping industry is basically controlled by beekeepers. So the people that actually run the bees actually are running the industry structure as well. Over in China, that's not the case. The people that actually run the bees, they're the peasants, and they're the uneducated, and they do the work, and it's the company bosses that buy all the honey and pack it and market it and sell it. They are running the industry within China. So that's a bit of a key difference as well, but that may change as their quality of life and as they lift up that bottom tier of their society, then that may change as well. Many opportunities to interact with China, and it's happening more and more in the past 2 years since I went over there. Just noticed more and more stuff, especially this last 12 months with a shortage of Australian honey. Shortage of Australian honey, the free trade agreement progressing, the increasing perception of Australia as being a great, clean, green place. Very clean. We have had that many phone calls from people with Asian accents wanting to buy honey. It's just been unbelievable. So it helps that there's a shortage of Australian honey, and they're trying to get straight to the beekeeper to actually get to it as well, and just get it from wherever they can. But there's becoming more and more opportunities for this to happen. That's which I didn't mention before, the guy that runs the Royal Jelly Company is permanent resident here in Australia. That's one of the things that he said was a big opportunity. He was thinking about opening a shop here in Melbourne as well, because we've got such a big Chinese community here within Australia. So it's a market opportunity for him as well. Governmental support for beekeeping. I personally think that we're at different stages in beekeeping as not as an industry, but as an agricultural pursuit. Over here in Australia, it is an industry that has been developed. So it's not a new and emerging industry, so there's less and less government help to actually prop it up and help out with things like pests and diseases and whatnot and development. Over in China, they're at a different stage. They've still been getting quite a bit of governmental support. They've been getting incentive programs. They're getting help with their companies to actually train their beekeepers to provide a better product. So the government has got a heavy hand within the development of beekeeping in general. That is slowly reducing, but it's still much more than we get here in Australia. Size of the domestic market is, as I said before, they're looking within the next 10 years to be totally consuming all the honey that they produce, and then being a net importer of honey, whereas at the moment they're the biggest exporter of honey within the world.
Yeah, there should be a free trade agreement that means that they will more scope exporting to Australia as well.
They will have, and in the end, it's, they may consume or they may not stop being the biggest exporter in Australia because they may import more honey to satisfy their demand. They might import more honey that's seen as cleaner and greener than theirs. and then they still may export their honey out. So it may not change, or it may. But there's plenty of opportunities there at the moment. It's just a matter of people having a go and see if they can grab them. And yeah, some people will get burnt, and yeah, other people will go great guns. Greater efficiency in loading vehicles. It's almost touching the ground at the back end there. So they're a bit better than us. And a little tricycle that one of the fellas just jumped on to pose for a picture. The fella that showed us the raw jelly, he had a film crew following us around, and we thought, oh, he's getting some mileage out of us. And yeah, and he did get some mileage. When we got back, we sort of posed for a few pictures in there about how good his raw jelly honey is, and that's not his raw jelly honey, his raw jelly is. And then when we got back, we had a look at his website, and yeah, there we were. So it must have gone up, the day after we were there. So
You won't go further, yeah.
yeah, no, that was yeah, we didn't taste it then. We just held up a jar.
So it's scientifically proven that it is these things,
Oh,
or is it just a
it is a Chinese medicine. It is accepted practice, scientifically proven. There has been research done on it and benefits for it, but I don't think it's necessarily totally accepted by everyone that it is the ants pants for medicine. So yeah, but then it doesn't really matter as long as people believe it is. And that is the difference in terms of Asia as compared to here, whereas if we want to claim that on our product that our raw jelly will fix all ills, we've got to have proof if we want to say that on the label, whereas over there in China, no, they don't. This is another yard of bees, yeah, just sandwiched in between buildings, so buildings all around there, plenty of forest around this place. This is just outside of Beijing and the natural reserve, the national park area, so yeah, but again, raw jelly production mainly, with some honey. This is another one, this is at the CSIRO, the beekeeping part of the CSIRO, and beehives, bee yard just sort of stacked in wherever they can. And
There's a lot of single hives there, a couple of doubles.
Yep.
Did you see many examples of triples and quadruples and 5 and 6?
no, didn't see much of that at all. And we just assumed it was the time of year. It was their springtime. Things were just starting. Their honey production hadn't really kicked off yet, so it was an early part of their spring when we went there. Yeah, so things hadn't really got going. Yeah, and our assumption was that because they don't produce as much honey as we do here, they might not get to that height. They might be harvesting the honey beforehand, before they get them up to 3s and 4s. Again, that's another honey packing plant up the, so we've got our containers, 70 kilo bulk honey containers. Up the other end we've got some drums. The fella up there was looking at the drums, and yeah, he'd seen there was a few of them there that had fermented honey in because they were bulging out at the end, so they'd already expanded from there because the gas is bulging the drum out. So yeah, the moisture is a problem, but one that they're trying to address.
Is that because of a humid climate?
But yeah, humid climate and how quickly they harvest the honey. So humidity does have a factor, especially in the areas they're big high production areas. But also yeah, how quickly they harvest the honey. And there's a Chinese Red Bull, just to keep us going on our trips around in our little bus. And that's all I have for you. So have I got it in time, Steve?
Yeah, no, beautiful. I was just worried that we ran out of time last 12 months ago, and I didn't want that happen again. But no, we've got more questions, please.
Why is there a shortage of Australian honey at the moment?
Just the production has been low. Big producing states, New South Wales and Queensland, are in their second poor production year. in a row. In Victoria here, last year was about average. The 2 years previous were very low production years in terms of honey. So it has just been a string of bad years across the higher producing states that has caused that stockpile to dwindle.
Does anyone know why?
Well, there's been drought affect some parts of Queensland and New South Wales that has an effect. Here in Victoria, we've had, like our personal business, last year was just below average for production. The 2 years previous were way below average, just about our worst years ever. The year before that was our best year ever. So we've just had the highs and lows. Back in about 2011, I think it was, when the drought broke, we had a heap of rain, but we got a lot of that rain through summer instead of in our normal rainfall period. And so we're sort of surmising that maybe that out of season big dramatic rainfall has then had a flow-on effect with the trees and thrown their budding cycle out of whack. And we've seen that in some of our trees, and that now we seem to be getting more of a patch budding rather than a complete budding. Yellow box for one, up around central Victoria, Castlemaine, you know, every second year you'd get a big crop, whereas we haven't had a big crop for, I'd say, 5 years. We've had little bits and pieces every year. So, but red gum's been the same. There hasn't been a real good budding of red gum for a while. Grey box hasn't worked for about 6 years. Iron bark has been a few years now. So that's what we're sort of putting it down to, and for Victoria at least anyway.
I know your conversation is very much about Australia and versus in China.
Yeah.
When you were in China, did you see honey from our friends across the ditch?
Yeah. Heaps. We went into a few honey shops. We went into supermarkets when we were on our own. We just went and had a look in supermarkets. Honey from all over the world. So heaps of honey, heaps of Manuka honey in there. Yeah, all different brands, high priced Chinese honey, honey from Europe as well, just all over the place. Not in the supermarket itself. I don't think we saw any Australian honey. That was more in specialty honey shops.
I think the writers, speaking of New Zealand, they just bought some propolis toothpaste. What do the Chinese use propolis for? Is it another medicine?
It's another medicine. It fixes everything. So yeah. what it doesn't fix, royal jelly will fix. So it's another, and they're a huge producer of propolis as well. And with New Zealand produces a lot. And the biggest producer, the biggest tree that sort of produces it is the poplar tree, because it's got a lot of resin that grows all over their buds and their flowers as well as on the trees that they get the propolis and generate the propolis from. So yeah, they got lots of poplars over there.
Where do you see the future of Australian honey in terms of export and marketing it in China? Do you see it in the higher quality end rather than the low end, or do you see it in bulk? Or?
No, I see everything. I think if you can value add it as much as possible, go for the higher end of the market. I see is the biggest value myself. Bulk honey, I don't think is a winner. I think we've got to provide a premium product, and we've got that opportunity with those pictures I showed before, that perception of Australia, that beautiful blue sky, that clean green image. Promote that, and I think that's the way to go. There's plenty. I said about there's been plenty of Chinese people coming out of the woodworks asking for honey. They don't want bulk honey, they want pre-packaged honey. And the guys over there in China that were telling us about it said that as well, because the Chinese don't trust the Chinese. They don't trust themselves. There's plenty of examples over there in China where they're adulterating the product themselves. So they're putting sugars within the honey. They're thinning it down to make it go further, and yeah, so they don't trust it. So if it's pre-packaged over here, then they're more likely to trust that is a true blue product, and that's a premium product, and it is what it says.